Hello there, you're welcome back to Biology Lectures with Akerele Oladimeji Philip. So, still on the series, the human reproduction. So now we move on to menstrual cycle. Menstrual cycle. Looking at the screen, you're going to see a calendar counting down from 1 to 28. Then it starts from 1 again. Then you notice this is the ovary. Of course, if you've been with me all along, and that white thing moved like this, like that, was the egg, and this is the endometrium of the uterus. Now you notice that this endometrium is building up. As building up, the egg is released, it comes down, and both the egg and the blood comes down like that. Now there's some few information you really need to know at this point. What menstrual cycle is saying, menstrual cycle is like saying the female reproductive cycle. Menstrual cycle simply means that the body of a female is ready for reproduction. Of course, it happens in young girls, but doesn't mean the girls should start reproducing actually. But in the biological term, what it really means is that the body of the female is ready for reproduction. Now, let me say some real quick stuff here. Every month, once it's ready for reproduction, what happens is the ovary releases an egg, that white thing that moved, thinking that the body is ready for reproduction. Now, as the egg is released like that, the uterus gets this thing that builds up, that's building up, is building up in expectation that that white egg that's been released from this animation will get a sperm cell to fertilize it. If it does, let me prepare a bed for it to grow on. I mean, that's literally what happens. So this thickness you are seeing is in preparation for this egg to get fertilized. If it gets fertilized, let me get a place for it to grow. But when it doesn't get fertilized, after 48 hours or thereabout, this egg cell dies. That's why it scatters there, like it breaks like that. But it doesn't really happen like that in reality. Then when it doesn't get fertilized, this bed that was built for it comes down. Then next month, another bed or another place is built for it. I just call it bed. It's not really a bed, but I just call it for bed for simplicity. That's where the egg gets attached, and the zygote get attached to and grows. But if there was no fertilization, there's no point keeping the bed. So the thing comes down. The bed comes down as menstruation. Let's get to work right now. So the female reproductive system includes a cycle of events called the menstrual cycle. It lasts for 28 days. The whole menstrual cycle lasts for 28 days, but it can be slightly less or more. Sometimes it can be as less as 25 days, and it can be as much as 35 days, so to say. I think either of this is okay, but averagely it's around it averages between on 28 days. Like, it's always around 28 days for most people. But even if it's as short as 25 days, it's still okay, or as long as 25 days, it's still okay. Now, the cycle stops only when a woman is pregnant, like I told you. So what I was trying to explain earlier on was that the only thing that will not make that lining to come down is if there was pregnancy. I'm going to show you that in details. So these are the main features. Number one is that the first feature or stage, what I meant to say by that is the stage is menstruation. Students usually mix up menstrual cycle for menstruation. Please don't. Menstrual cycle is the whole 28 days. Like the whole 28 days. While menstruation is just the first few days. Usually like day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5. So it takes about 5 days for this to happen. The start of the cycle is day 1. This is when the bleeding from the vagina starts. Now, this is caused by the loss of lining of the uterus. Why? Because the egg was not fertilized. So this is called menstruation or having a period. By the end of 5 days, the blood stops. That means the whole thickness of that uterus, that lining, endometrium, has been like as eroded, as falling off, so that new one can grow. So it says here, the lining then begins to regrow for the new egg. Sorry, the lining begins to regrow, and so that a new egg can be released again. Because like I told you, the lining is built for an egg. So once the egg is not fertilized, the egg is destroyed and the lining for it is also destroyed. It goes down. So a new lining is growing again and a new egg is going to be released again from the ovary. This information is very, very important. All right. So this is what we're trying to say right here now. So you can see what happens. Good. So the ovary releases an egg from here. Then the egg moves in, no fertilization. So the uterine lining, that reddish thing going down, this one is the uterine lining where the egg will have grown. If it were to be fertilized, it goes down. It's that simple. So this that you are seeing right now, this coming down is called menstruation. That uterine lining going down is called menstruation, while the release of the egg there was called ovulation, so to say. Hope there's no mix up right now. Now, the next thing that happens is ovulation. Now, please, let me see something right now. What happened, this event, let me get this off. You should know that this menstruation is happening in the uterus. All right? While ovulation is happening in the ovary. It's something you should know, please. You can be asked, where is ovulation taking place? In the ovary. Where is the uterus taking? Sorry, where is the menstruation taking place? Menstruation, please, is the uterus. But don't forget that both menstruation, ovulation, all of those stuffs forms the menstrual cycle, which takes 28 days. Menstruation only takes 5 days. So here at about day 14, the mature egg is released from one of the ovaries. This is called ovulation. Please, it says day 14, just a single day, not 14 days. Day 14, or can say the 14th day of the menstrual cycle. That means when you have day 1 to 28, on day 14, just one single day, due to some hormonal changes, spikes in LH and some other stuff, there is a release of an egg here. If you're a ks4 student or an advanced student, you need to know more than this sincerely. You need to know the hormones, how they spike in LH, what follicle stimulating hormone does, and all those stuffs. But for the sake of ks3, everything here is okay. Now the egg travels through the oviduct. So what we're trying to say is this. I wish I had drawn that here. So okay, let me draw something real quick here. So this is the, let me get this off to have a space to draw. So this is the fallopian tube. This is the ovary releasing its egg like that. So the egg goes like that through what? Fallopian tube. So this is the uterus. It's just not fully drawn like that. Sorry, that was not nicely drawn. So it moves through the oviduct towards the uterus. So the egg moves like that. That's the egg moving. Then comes to this is the uterus. Gets attached to the wall of the uterus like that. Now, if the egg does not meet with a sperm cell in the oviduct, like I told you, this is where sperm cell usually fertilizes the egg. The lining of the uterus begins to break down and the cycle repeats itself. Just what I explained at the beginning of the cycle of the class. This is very, very important. Very, very important, please. All right. So this is the follicle in the ovary. This whole thing is in the ovary anyways. All right. So this is the follicle growing gradually. This is like what a child was born with. Like, sorry, here, let me show you here. This is what the child was born with, this one. Then it starts to grow. At puberty, it starts to grow. So, I mean, it happens at puberty. Like, you know, I told you, menstrual cycles start at puberty when a female body is ready for reproduction. So, this is, can you see this? I love this. This is day 1 to 13, day 15 to 28, like that. Okay, good. On the 14th day, the ovary. Don't forget what you are seeing is happening in the in the ovary. This whole thing, though it's not drawn as ovary, but for simplicity, this is happening in the ovary. Everything happening. That's why you are seeing follicular phase, luteal phase. You don't need to know that seriously if you are an O-level student. So you don't need to know that. But the point I'm making is this. So this is day 14, just one single day. The egg is released from the follicle within the ovary. That's why we call it ovulation. So don't forget that if this were to be in the uterus, this day 1 to 5 is menstruation, so to say, or period, so to say. But don't get confused. Just this is what I wanted you to know here is on one single day, which is day 14, that's when ovulation takes place, which is the release of the egg, so to say. Now, there's something you really need to know here. I just want you to pay attention to some few stuff here. If you look at this right now, I'm using this diagram first here, this one on the right. On day 14, if you trace it up, what's happening? Ovulation is happening. Now, take note that this is happening in the ovary, this is happening in the uterus. It's happening simultaneously. Watch. Look at this. The thickness that was made for the initial egg and there was no fertilization, it eroded. That's menses. Like it broke off. Let me get that off to get. Let me see. Okay, now this is what happens. So here the period has happened. Then what happened? It start growing again. Start growing again. Then take note that on day 14, the egg is released. Can you see that the thickness has become more? Why? Getting ready. Assuming that if this guy gets fertilized with sperm cell, it gets the necessary thickness for the baby to grow like that. This is very important. So it means that if it gets the necessary thickness, then it gets the egg fertilized, then it grows here. But if not, see what happens again. Menses, it falls off again. It's that simple. So it means that this whole place will shed off because there was no fertilization, so there's no point keeping it. So it sheds off and it's going to grow again for another egg. It's that simple. Don't forget, this is in the uterus and this is in the ovary. Hope that made sense all the way. So it says here, fertilization happens if the egg meets and joins with sperm cell in the oviduct. Fertilized egg attached to the uterus lining or lining of the uterus. So if it happens, so it says the woman becomes pregnant, the lining of the uterus does not break and menstruation does not happen. That's when a woman tells her husband, I've missed my period, they're happy. That means she's pregnant because once she misses her period, she is pregnant. That means, let me go back. That means this whole thing is kept because the fertilized egg has attached to this, so it is kept and there's no menstruation happening.